There is nothing romantic about red flags. There's nothing romantic about somebody that doesn't respect your boundaries and your barriers and your wishes, and somebody that disrespects you. There is nothing romantic about people that are prone to unrelenting and unhinged anger. There is nothing romantic about domestic violence. There is nothing romantic about this situation, and there is nothing romantic about this movie. I've been trying all morning to make this video. I just recently got done watching It Ends With Us. I keep kicking on the camera, pressing record, staring off into space for about 3 or 4 minutes and pressing stop. Rinse and repeat. This is tough. So I don't have a script for this one. I don't have anything running on my teleprompter. I'm just speaking from the heart. I heard about this because I heard about the controversy surrounding it, or at the very least, that there was some controversy surrounding it. And I kind of wanted to see it for myself to just understand what was actually happening here. So I'm going to be talking very frankly about a lot of topics, including spoilers for It Ends With Us. So just fair warning with that one. I have never read this particular book from Colleen Hoover. I've never actually read any book from Colleen Hoover. One of the things that I was hearing, I kind of wanted to address, was that it romanticized the idea of domestic violence in a relationship. Just to give a little bit of my background, I was raised in a very abusive household. My father would beat us regularly. First my mother, then my sister, then me. And it was tough. I got out. They didn't. My mom stayed. My sister got out briefly and then moved back in with them. And that's kind of been the living situation ever since. She's 2 years older than me. My father has since passed, and my mother is in failing health. That's the sit rep. When I moved out, I basically had an informal foster home. I moved in with my friend's parents, and that household was an extraordinarily healthy one, full of vibrant, healthy communication. And it taught me a whole lot of the lessons that I did not grow up learning. It took me a long time and a lot of pain to get through that gauntlet of learning those lessons. I don't know if this movie necessarily romanticizes domestic violence, in my opinion. I think the thing that it does that I found to be difficult and worthy of the controversy surrounding it is it overly simplified the whole situation. This very much felt to me like a shower argument, as in the one person taking both sides of an argument in the shower as they play out a fantasy argument in their head, maybe thinking about a past argument that they got into, and they fill in both sides of the equation. I'm not a big fan of Lifetime movies for the same reason. Domestic violence and abuse and the trauma born from it is incredibly complex. It's very multi-layered, and it's very fucking difficult. Another thing that this movie is accused of romanticizing is the red flags leading up to issues. Again, I'm not entirely sure if it romanticizes them, but it certainly romanticizes the relationship while glossing over the red flags, and they are very fucking apparent right from the get-go. If you haven't seen this movie, I'm not joking when I say that the main character of Lily should have had absolute red flag situation that causes her running for the hills the exact second she meets her future husband of Ryle. She's hanging out on a rooftop. He bursts through the door, upset about something, and kicking over chairs. I can't be around drunk people. My dad was not an alcoholic. That's the interesting thing. He was not an alcoholic. He just had one hell of a temper. He had a lot of issues. And yes, he was abused horrifically as a child. And he passed that down to us. But I can't be around drunk people. I have difficulty eating one of my favorite foods, which is a club sandwich. I cry almost every Christmas, even though I haven't actually had a bad Christmas. This is all born from the trauma of an abusive household. This is all elements that are in play that are complex. And if I am around a drunk person, then I am prone to be wondering when the next shoe drops. I can't be around people that are unpredictable and can turn on a dime with extreme bouts of anger. And if somebody is bursting through the door, kicking over a chair, then I'm not all right. And I'm not saying that everybody responds to the same. Everybody's level of trauma, everybody's level of how they have worn and nurtured and healed their scars is extraordinarily different. But if somebody came through that door and kicking over a chair and is just extremely angry right from the moment I met them, it would not be rose-colored glasses. It would be arms protecting myself and needing to get out of the situation. This is what I mean by the movie oversimplified something that is extremely complex and difficult. And I think it trivialized it in some ways. I'm not a woman, clearly, and I can't speak to what women would go through. I can't speak to what women do go through. It's unfair, and it's terrible. When the main character in this movie of Lily has made her final decision and leaves Ryle, I think that was at the point where I started to realize the events that took place after that really were that one person having both sides of the argument conversation in the shower. Ryle's sister of Alyssa and Lily's best friend explains some elements of their growing up together and says, you know, I'm so sorry about this, and so on. And is very apologetic. Here's what would actually happen. Okay, you know what? I can't say what would absolutely happen, but I'm going to speak in somewhat general terms in what would happen in the majority of cases. There are always exceptions. There are always difficult and different takeaways from things. But just speaking to the majority of the time, what would happen is Alyssa would not have believed her. Alyssa would have drawn the line, supported her brother, not believed Lily, and then cut off the best friend thing. Lily would have been more alone than she's ever been in her entire life by making that decision. That doesn't mean it's the wrong one. It's just a difficult one. And the idea that you can make it and have all the support of everybody around you is completely unrealistic. You're going to lose people. It's still the right thing to do. My mom is in failing health. And I know this because my sister sends me texts and I haven't responded. She keeps me updated. But I haven't responded. And I haven't spoken to my mother in a while. And I would dare say I haven't spoken to anybody in my close family aside from my half-brother in any true sense of like an actually open heart, reveal who I am kind of way for decades. That's born from the past and also born from the present, has a lot to do with the nature in which they changed as individuals, and it gets into politics, religion, other things. So, I mean, there are aspects of it that are in play in the here and present now that makes them a toxic element in my life that makes me have that level of divide. However, my mom never laid a hand on us growing up, but I have never been able to reconcile her decision to stay. She was born into an abusive household herself. She was the victim of abuse from her father and her mother. And she carried that with her and got in this relationship with my dad. She was my dad's second wife. His first wife, he abused the hell out of until she took her 2 kids and left, one of which was my half-brother. There were so many times, so many nights where one or a few of us would be bloodied, bruised, and all of us would be crying, and I would just want her to take us away. Like, I was scared too. I was a little kid and I was scared about the prospect of starting over. I was scared about the prospect of losing our house and my little creature comforts having to new friends and go to a different school and so forth. But at no point was I ever anything other than absolutely wanting her to take us and leave. I was willing to be scared, but it was worth it to have that please get us out of there situation. And she never did. And I've had a large amount of difficulty in reconciling that. Like my my half siblings, their mother did. They showed it was possible, even with our father in particular. So not only was it possible in concept, it was possible within the reality of the construct of what we were living through. Somebody else did this. Why don't you? Where's the mama bear? Where's the, protect the kids? We sat and I got put across from my dad as he looked me in the eye, as he says, you better never call the cops on us, because if you do, you better pray I never get out of jail. I did call the cops on him at one point, but it wasn't until I was 17 years old, and I think it was a situation, if I recall correctly, that was in high school, and my counselor basically saw all the warning signs that every other teacher has seen throughout my educational career. But this time, this one person actually chose, aside, differently from everybody else who ignored it, to actually ask me some questions. And I answered truthfully. We had a cop come, they jotted down some notes, and I was scared to fucking death that they were going to inform my father that I had a statement written up about him. And the cop assured me in a really kind of fucked up way. He's like, don't worry about that. Nothing's going to happen with this one. All of our resources are tied up into younger kids. I was relieved. I was very relieved, honestly. But it was still it was something that's just indelible. It's just etched into my brain. There's a lot of things that are etched into my brain. A lot of behavioral tics that I have had to go to therapy and learn and unlearn, and things that affect me to this day. The physical scars healed so long ago. I'm 44 years old. I haven't had physical scars in that regard in a long, long, long time. I still have the scars here, and I will to the day I die. And that's when I see a movie like this, and I see a film that trivializes, maybe doesn't necessarily romanticize, but trivializes this aspect of things, and has it so that when somebody leaves, that everybody is rallying around her to support her. And she's still willing to have a co-parent situation with this man, despite all the red flags still being present. He was telling her, it's like, we should get back together. I'll go to therapy. I'll do the work. It's like, well, why the fuck haven't you already? You threw your wife down the goddamn stairs. Are you doing this to better yourself, or are you doing this just to get her back? And why would you put your kids in this situation? Domestic violence almost always escalates. Kicking over chairs on a rooftop will oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes lead to a fist being put through the wall. And then a shove. And then a punch. And then a choke. And then going from the wife to the kids. It almost always escalates. Why would you put your kids in that environment? Why would you do it, especially if he is only offering to get help instead of actively seeking it out for himself, for his own betterment, for his own... to put a stop to it? Why isn't he the one saying it ends with us? So yeah, it pissed me off, clearly. Look, I don't want anybody to wind up in this situation, but so many people so often do. It's a reality, and it's way more prevalent than anybody would think. And certainly way, way more than it should ever be. I was recently recommended a movie by one of our patrons of the channel, Love Lies Bleeding. And I thought it was an incredibly beautiful movie. And one of the things that I really liked about it was, I liked it and I hated it. And I actually said so to them, was it was the same thing that I liked and hated at the same time, which was the domestic violence aspect of it and how it was portrayed. In that film, a woman is subjected to domestic violence up to the point of her husband putting her in the hospital with the face just completely like fractured in half. She was really upset when she found out that some manner of revenge had befallen him, that somebody went out on her behalf and hurt him. And she kept defending him through tears. I hated that, but I loved it at the same time. And it's not that I loved it, it's that I loved the realistic portrayal of how things often are. I keep saying this, but this is a difficult, complex, multi-layered topic. And the one thing it should never be treated with is simplicity. Simplicity to me almost seems dismissive. And when it's the core plotline element of your movie, why are you dismissing it? Why are you putting it through not necessarily romanticism lens, but why the hell is it even becoming adjacent to that? Like if somebody actually came to me and said that this movie romanticizes the red flags and romanticizes the domestic violence, I'm not going to necessarily agree with them, but I don't really have a whole lot of a leg to stand on to argue that point. Like I can see how other people believe that, and I don't really have the wherewithal to, it's like this is so encroaching upon that barrier that like I can't really defend it if somebody else believes that it went there. Like, okay, you know what? I get it. There was a film back when I was doing Rotted Reviews that I think in retrospect I may have in the moment been a little bit harsh on. It actually made me angry. Was a film called No Reasons. And it was a film that it was almost like a multi-faceted kind of crime drama thing that every conflict was in some way escalated or resolved with rape. Somebody wanted to get out of a situation, rape. Some conflict needed resolution, rape. And that upset me. And it's not that it was like gritty and grimy. In fact, quite the opposite. It was almost flippant. It was just the way it was. And I spoke with the director. I made that review. The director reached out to me. We actually had about an hour-long Zoom call together where we had a really good, productive conversation. And it was a really good, friendly kind of interaction where I explained what I was coming from. He explained where he was coming from. And we both, at the very least, got on the same page. And one of the things he explained was that this was actually, like, his movie was based on real, actual circumstances. And I said it wasn't necessarily the topic as much as it was the tone surrounding it. I don't like it when difficult things that are so massively traumatic and painful are dealt with in a flippant way or in a romanticized way or in an escapist way. I think it does them a disservice. And for something that's so close to my history and so close to my heart and so close to the trauma that I live every day working through, it's a tough pill to swallow. So I think the last thing I'm really just going to say here is just a statement born from the place of where I currently stand. For anybody that needs to hear this, there is nothing romantic about red flags. There is nothing romantic about somebody that's broken that you want to fix. There's nothing romantic about somebody that doesn't respect your boundaries and your barriers and your wishes and somebody that disrespects you. There's nothing romantic about people that are prone to unrelenting and unhinged anger. There's nothing romantic about domestic violence. There is nothing romantic about this situation, and there is nothing romantic about this movie. If you are in a situation where you think you are experiencing domestic violence, please, please, please reach out. There is help available. There are resources to help you. There are support groups. There are foundations. There are charities. There are resources. Please don't accept this as just your truth. Please don't accept this just as truth for your children. Please seek help. Speaking as a child that had to go through this, whose mother never made that phone call, please make that call. I wish to hell she had. I wish to hell I could still talk to her. I wish to hell things had been different. Thank you.